From the crossroads of the Ozarks, it's PID Radio. Welcome, I'm Derek Gilbert.
I am Sharon Gilbert, and boy, oh boy, things happened yesterday.
Oh,
we'll get to that in a minute, but before we do, we want to remind you, download our app.
Yes, the the app from the OGs of Christian podcasting.
Oh, yeah.
The old geezers. Yeah, Gilbert
the
House.
Original old geezers.
That's right. PIDradio.com/app or gilberthouse.org/app. Go to gilberthouse.org. Everything we do is there. And we've got apps for iOS, Android, Amazon, Kindle Fire. If you're watching on TV, which doesn't help you much with this podcast, but if you've got the app for TV, hey, we are now on Amazon Fire TV and Google TV as well. Android TV as well, so you in addition to Roku and Apple TV. So you've got all of those options. The reason for doing it, especially with the mobile app, is not just it bypasses the gatekeepers of big tech, but it brings you into the community. Mm-hmm. And our community there with a really growing fellowship, which is really wonderful.
We've had, 20,000 downloads of the app or more than that, maybe?
I would have to check, but it's something like that.
So a lot of people have downloaded the app. You won't be alone. And there are many, many, many people who have joined the conversation area.
Mm-hmm. And the messaging at the top right of when you download that app, there's a little, what looks like a talk bubble, and that brings you into this little group, a few hundred people. All of this contained offline, so you're not being subject to the ads that you get on the other places like, the Facey spaces. But better yet, it's like-minded folks who are seeking the Lord and His will and trying to go deeper into His Word.
Yep. And
we are just so grateful that you're joining us on this journey of discovery. And so, again, gilberthouse.org/app to get all of that. Plus, like I said, all of our content that's kind of a bonus.
Contented content?
Yes.
I don't know.
Sometimes it's discontented.
This is the winter of our content.
Yes. And that content too. And the other content.
And the other content too. And eventually you're going to also get the Bible's greatest mysteries.
Yeah, going to start uploading that this weekend. Joe Artishorn has given us the go-ahead to bring that back. So we've actually interviewed our first guest for that.
Yeah,
Pastor Carl
Gallups.
Yeah, was here in the barn. God bless him. Thank you, Carl, for taking time out of a busy, busy schedule.
We had such fun. Spent a day with Carl.
Mm-hmm.
And the dogs love him.
They do. Oh, my. Carl, you're a dog guy. We can tell. And
he loves them, too. Yeah. It's just, when he got here this time, he had a suit on. Previously, they could jump all over him. He didn't care. We try to discourage jumping on guests when they come in, but, the dogs, they get excited.
Yeah, Grace, and she doesn't realize how big she is. She's, only 55 pounds. She's not a really, really big dog, but that's still big enough that...
When they're climbing up you, essentially.
Yeah. And when you get paws that are a little damp from the morning dew and little dirt, it doesn't mix well with a good suit, so... Anyway, watch for that. That'll be coming, we'll settle.
Probably in September.
September?
Early September. So that gives you a few days. I know you've got some stuff to do before you leave in a couple of weeks, which remind me, just by the way, we are going to tell you at the end of this study all of the many places you can find us on the road.
Oh, yeah. App downloads all time, 24,000.
Ooh,
and boy, change.
That, seriously, when we got to 1,000, I was like, what?
This is another number. This is looking at the dashboard for the app now, so I'm getting the analytics here. Media plays is approaching 650,000.
Oh, my goodness.
We are humbled.
Truly, truly are. And I'll tell you what, if you're getting something really good out of this, we'll give praise to the Lord for it.
Amen.
And if there's junk in there, that's us.
Exactly.
We're junky.
Get it right, it's His. If we get it wrong, that's on us.
That is so true.
Well, as you say, this week was a really interesting week for political observers all over the world.
If you follow us, if you're not aware of what's going on, if you follow us on X or on Telegram, X is the old Twitter. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, I've gotten used to calling it X.
Yeah.
I actually like it. So there.
It took a while to get used to it, but now I do like it.
Yeah. So if you're on X or on Telegram and you follow us, then you're well aware of what happened yesterday. But if you've been living in a cave, here it is.
Yeah. Donald Trump basically stole the thunder from the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, which convention was this week in Chicago, where they formally anointed Kamala Harris. But then on Friday, Robert F. Kennedy first.
Thursday, he announced it, that he was going to be speaking on Friday.
Right, in Phoenix.
And so everybody was waiting, and the room was filled with media.
Mm-hmm. And yesterday, just after lunch,
12:45.
Our time, he announced that he was suspending his campaign and would endorse Donald Trump for president. Now, he is removing his name from ballots in only select states. Those are the battleground states, the ones that are kind of a toss-up between Trump and Harris.
Mm-hmm.
Because internal polling, he determined from the internal polling that they were conducting that his presence in the race was probably going to draw more votes away from Trump than from Harris,
right.
Interestingly enough. Because Kennedy, I mean, his name, the family name, is so deeply entrenched in the history of the Democratic Party.
It's huge, and he comes from an old-style Democrat Party.
Right.
His beliefs are far more conservative than the current Democrat Party.
Yeah, still to the left on certain social issues than President Trump. And in his speech, he admitted that he and Trump still are in disagreement over certain issues. For example, I would imagine abortion is one issue that.
But he can always pray about that.
Sure.
But back to his announcement.
His announcement. So he's withdrawing his name from the ballots in those battleground states and encouraging people who would have voted for him in those states to vote for President Trump. In states that are solidly Democrat or solidly Republican. I hate the red-blue thing, especially because the colors are reversed. Red is a communist color, and that really applies to Democrats these days. He's staying on the ballot. So if you're in California or if you're in Missouri and you were going to vote for Kennedy, go ahead and do it because it's really not going to affect the outcome. Missouri's going to go Republican, California is going to go Democrat, and so on.
But here's my advice. If you're truly conservative, whether you have a D or an R in your category, if you are truly conservative and you care about children, vote for Trump.
Yeah, because during his speech, Kennedy explained why he was doing this. And his speech was genuine and heartfelt. I mean, he began to cry during his speech.
It was real weeping.
Yeah. Said that he feels a strong leading. He said, this is a spiritual journey. That's how he phrased this, and said this was after a lot of prayer. And God bless him, because his wife, who was one of the stars of that show, Curb Your Enthusiasm, Larry David's series, she's very liberal and does not like Donald Trump.
And most of his family has this morning disavowed him.
They did it within half an hour of his speech. Sent out, he's
doesn't speak for us.
Yeah, well, they've drifted away from what Robert F. Kennedy Sr. and what John F. Kennedy stood for.
Absolutely.
So he believes that President Trump is on the same page when it comes to protecting our children and grandchildren from the chronic health issues that they are subject to now because of poisons in their food and in their medicines. We've got a lot of toxic chemicals that are allowed in food here that are banned elsewhere. For example, in the European Union, a lot of things that are allowed as, what does the FDA call? FDA calls them generally regarded as safe.
Yes, grass.
Yeah, which
have some grass.
Are just flat out not allowed in Europe. We've noticed when we've been out of the United States on our tours of Israel, and in some cases then going to the UK or going to Italy afterwards, that we feel better after a couple of weeks of eating the food over there.
Much. I can eat 3 times as much over there. Now, mind you, we're walking a lot, but still, I feel really healthy.
Yeah.
Even pastries over there. So clearly the flours don't contain some of the junk that we've got in our flour over here.
Right. So that is something that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. feels very strongly about, and he feels that President Trump is in alignment with him in that regard. I mean, Kennedy's got 7 children, and so he's well equipped with childhood diseases and the perils of raising children and grandchildren these days. He reached out, and this had been previously reported by some in the media, that he had reached out to Kamala Harris, but the way it was phrased by the corporate media, he was angling for a cabinet position, which made it sound like he was just interested in his own ambition.
They were trying to essentially derail him, marginalize him before the fact.
Right. And as it happened, Harris wouldn't even take his phone call. Trump not only took his call, but met with him personally, met with the family. And Kennedy said that after that meeting where they hashed out a lot of things, they realized that they're of one accord in many of these issues. And so he, again, Robert F. Kennedy, suspending his campaign and endorsing Donald Trump.
So much so, and I said to you after it was all over, I said, they're both in Phoenix. I would bet the farm that he shows up at Trump's rally.
Yeah, and Sharon was right, because several hours later, Donald Trump, and there's an epic photo now of the two of them shaking hands with sparklers going off in the background. It's like, okay, that's another meme photo, like Trump, with his arm raised, saying, surrounded by Secret Service agent. And you could not come out with a better campaign photo if you'd staged it.
You could not. And it's my prayer that both of those men will be guided by the Lord, that they will seek him out. Because no matter who ends up in that office, we are commanded to pray for them so that we may live a peaceable life. And I believe that Kennedy and Trump as well both would like for our country to be safe and peaceful.
Yeah, and that's the other aspect, is that Kennedy made a point of emphasizing the forever wars, especially the war in Ukraine, where he said the flower of Ukrainian youth, as many as perhaps 600,000 Ukrainian young men have died in this war, and more than 100,000 Russians. War that did not need to happen. And he said, and we will echo this, we're not carrying any water for Vladimir Putin for invading Ukraine, but the fact is that NATO, pushed by the neocons in Washington, D.C., have continuously lied, broken promises, unilaterally withdrew from 2 medium-range nuclear weapons treaties.
And surrounded him.
And surrounded Russia by expanding NATO right up to the Russian border. These are hostile acts. We would respond, the United States would respond the same way if Mexico were suddenly to enter into a military alliance with Russia or China.
The late Jack Kennedy did respond that way.
Exactly.
When Russia was trying to put missiles in Cuba.
Nuclear tipped missiles. Right. Exactly. Almost went to World War III. I was just barely born. I was less than a year old when this happened.
I remember it well.
Yeah.
The missiles of October of 1962, that was a big deal.
Yeah.
As a 6th grader.
Sure.
I was mimicking, because we all heard that Khrushchev said he would bury the United States.
Right.
And he did so by taking his shoe off and banging it on the table.
Using
so as
it like
kids,
a gavel.
We were all, saying, yay for Kennedy.
Not really understanding what was at stake.
Not really.
Our parents,
no.
I'm sure, were terrified, and not having the internet to follow up on the latest rumors or whatever. Waiting on the nightly news for Huntley and Brinkley or Walter Cronkite or whoever was on the air in 1962 to bring the news. So Kennedy, like Trump, wants to end the war in Ukraine. It's a pointless war. Ukraine has already lost. The one division that it sent into Kursk, is Battle of the Bulge moment, as we discussed last week. When you look at World War II, the Germans fought a massive tank battle in and around Kursk. They had a lot more manpower, I think 5 divisions, that were overwhelmed by the Russians. The Russians have like a third more population than they did back in 1943 or whenever that battle was fought. So the one Ukrainian division that made this incursion into near the town of Kursk, it was never going to succeed. It was nothing more than showing the West, hey, keep sending us money because we're not dead yet.
No, I would highly recommend that because it's available on YouTube, and I've shared it, the actual full press conference with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., explaining all of these things.
It's really worth watching.
So worth watching, talking not only about saving our children from chronic disease, from war, constant war, but also from losing their freedoms. The freedom of speech.
The censorship-industrial complex. He used that phrase.
He did.
And he's right, because out of the Department of Homeland Security, they keep changing the name of the offices, but they've never really given up on the idea of total information awareness that we were talking about on PID radio years ago.
I know. It just changed its name. Exactly. It's essentially the Ministry of Truth.
Yeah. Yeah. So
if you've never read Orwell's 1984, you need to read it.
Yeah.
He was
Sadly,
just off by
a few years, but there are elements within our government and in the UK that are taking it as a guidance, an instruction manual instead of a warning.
Oh my gosh, Keir Starmer, he's arresting the wrong people.
Mm-hmm.
The people that have committed really heinous acts, felonies, are being released from prison very early.
Mm-hmm.
And those people who do nothing more than try to stand up for the rights of their children are arrested.
Yeah, there was a law that was passed, and I just want to say one more thing about Kennedy's speech. I don't think it's exaggerating to say that Kennedy's speech yesterday was the most substantial, in terms of actual policy substance, than any political speech I've heard probably in my lifetime.
It's old style Democrat, old style Republican.
Right,
it's the way speeches were given when I was very young. They contained a lot of aspects to the belief system, the planks of the platform on which that person stood. That's sort of given way to hopey changey.
Well,
and joy.
It's given way to what
this thing of joy.
I don't know. They're trying to find some way of selling the vibe of Kamala Harris because there's no substance.
Selling the vibe with a 1 or 2 word slogan, just like someone else used.
Hope and change, right? Yeah. All we saw from the Democrats this past week was Donald Trump is a racist. Trump. It was just, I've seen some supercuts, video supercuts of the speakers. Trump. Barack Obama demeaned himself by resorting to locker room humor to insult Donald Trump. This should have been beneath the dignity of a former president of the United States to tell a joke at the expense of Donald Trump. I don't care how it's like, have
you seen Jon Stewart's latest?
I have not. I've seen the headlines.
You need to watch it.
I will. And Michelle Obama basically calling him a racist. He's a racist, he's a misogynist, and he's inadequate. Let's put it that way. And then you have Robert F. Kennedy come out Friday afternoon and deliver this impassioned speech about we need to love our children. I love this line. This almost brought me to tears. We need to love our children more than we hate each other.
Yes. Unity.
Yeah.
That was the theme of his moment with Trump. Unity.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when they came out, the Trump rally crowd went bananas.
They did.
And Trump announced that he would have Kennedy chair a commission to find out what really happened to John and Bobby.
Yes.
Like, whoa.
Oh, that's big. That is the last thing certain elements.
Certain 3-letter agencies.
Yeah, cigarette smoking man doesn't want you. If you've ever seen the X-Files.
Yeah. The speeches that they gave on Friday, they've done 2 things. Number one, it certainly stole the momentum away from the Democrats, who, political conventions are dog and pony shows. They are theater. I get that. And the same holds true for the Republican Party. It was theater. But what Trump and Kennedy did was they stole the momentum. They stole the news cycle from the Democrats. But secondly, and this is far more serious, by announcing that, okay, we're going to stand up against Big Pharma. And I don't even know how many vaccines are recommended for children, infants anymore these days.
Oh, gosh.
I think I had like 6, looking at my medical record. Our daughter had about 22.
I may have had 3 or 4, maybe.
I know that it was over 40 the last time I checked.
I did not get chicken pox. I did not get measles vaccines because you just got the disease when you were a kid, when I was little. Smallpox, that I do remember.
So there's that. There's also opposing...
and polio.
Polio.
Yeah.
There is standing in opposition to big food, if you will, and the chemicals that they put into food to make food, ultra-processed foods, addictive, which is why it's so hard to give up some of these junk foods that we get hooked on.
Exactly. In fact, Kennedy, he implied that he has seen proof.
Yes.
He's got the receipts, so to speak.
Right.
For making that claim.
So you're going against Big Pharma, Big Food, and the military intelligence industrial complex.
It's huge. It's huge. And I pray that Donald Trump makes sure that someone is protecting RFK Jr.
Right. That was my point, because the two of them have now come out and said, we're going to stop the gravy train.
Mm-hmm. We've just put targets on our backs.
Exactly. So pray for the protection of Donald Trump.
Please do.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and their families, because we know already that as of July 13th, President Trump was not being adequately protected, and Kennedy was denied Secret Service protection altogether by the Biden administration until Trump shamed them into it. But what's the quality of the protection that those two men are getting? We pray for their protection.
We do. I'm going to go left. Did you need to go?
I was just going to come back to Keir Starmer, because we started down that throat.
Okay, we'll do Keir, and then I'm going to take a left jump.
Because this is coming here to the United States.
Yes. In fact, they may want to extradite someone who says things against.
In fact, the what is it? Commissioner of the Superintendent of Metropolitan Police. Police, Scotland Yard, said he wanted to extradite people in other countries who say things on social media that they don't like. But there was a law that was passed by Parliament last year to ban silent prayer outside abortion clinics, except for certain So there's like a 150 meter, that's about 500-foot barrier, a border around these clinics where you can't even go and just stand there and silently pray.
And they want to expand it.
Right. Well, no, it's not that they want to expand it. It's they want to start enforcing it, because under Sunni... Why am I
Sadiq Khan?
No. The previous prime minister. Why am I forgetting his name? Rishi Sunak.
Rishi Sunak.
I was thinking Sunni.
He's so forgettable.
Sunni, yeah. Rishi Sunak. Yeah. It wasn't being enforced. It wasn't being enforced. The Tories weren't enforcing it, but Starmer is going to begin enforcing that law. So thought crime will soon become a crime there. But it's already here, because this week in Michigan, a group of pro-life activists, including an 89-year-old woman who survived one of the concentration camps of Marshal Tito in Yugoslavia, were convicted of violating the FACE Act, which is the Free Access to Clinical Entrances Act. If they determine that you are somehow obstructing or even hindering access to a clinic, you can be arrested, and they face more than 10 years in prison for this.
That's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. Now, you go to the Department of Justice website, and its page for the FACE Act says, now, this is not about protecting access to abortions. Yes, it is.
You're not protecting access anywhere else.
Because you don't see people outside my doctor's office protesting. How dare you go in there and get treated for your aching knee?
Exactly. But I'm betting that if, someone who doesn't agree with the way I practice, my faith wants to stand outside my church and block access to the door.
That's First Amendment.
Or you can block traffic. Blocking traffic is fine.
It's fine.
And you're not even doing it silently. You're just blocking traffic. I'm sorry. I know you say your wife is in the car and she's about to have a baby and it's an emergency. Too bad. I've got to stop oil.
We're saving the planet. That's more important than your child and your wife. Yeah, it's ridiculous. So that kind of thought crime prosecution is already here. And again, that's one of the things that Robert F. Kennedy was
right. And again, I'll
talking
say,
about.
Read 1984.
Yep.
Read 1984. Well, my jump to the left, is something unexpected.
Oh.
Well, and it's not
There's that spice.
I know. And it's not the Spanish Inquisition, although that is unexpected. I often follow stories about emerging diseases or diseases that are changing. Tularemia, which is one of 6 bioterror-listed diseases, and is usually something hunters have to worry about because it is often carried, it's endemic within rabbit populations. So if you are cleaning a rabbit, you can contract tularemia, and it is very dangerous. A woman biologist has contracted tularemia from a seal. It is the first known case of a marine animal ever being infected with tularemia. Yeah, it's one of 6 high-priority bioterrorism agents. It was, by the way,
Where did
one
this
of the
happen?
diseases. It was in the MMWR report. It was Washington, state of Washington.
Okay.
This happened last year,
Mm-hmm.
and a necropsy, which is an autopsy essentially of an animal, determined that the animal had died from tularemia. Tularemia was, and probably still is, one of the biological agents that was experimented upon
Vector?
Yes, I think it was called Vector now, but it used to be called biopreparat, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the Russian form of our Fort Detrick.
Mm.
And what was the name of the,
It'll come to me. The guy who exposed it.
Yeah, exactly. In the bioterrorism book, I'll find it because it's in my Kindle. He talked about how that was one of the agents that they were trying to make worse and trying to make it so communicable that it would be in multiple populations, not just in rabbits and the like.
Mm-hmm.
The odds of the average person contracting it are pretty low. But if it starts to spread amongst other mammals, much like H5N1 has, then it begs the question, why has it jumped?
Yeah. Has it been tweaked?
Don't know.
Ken Ellebeck.
Ken Ellebeck, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Actually, that's not his real name. It's
that's
Americanized
an
name.
anglicized form. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. As much as we would like to think that biowarfare and chemical warfare are things of the past, the militaries of the world are still experimenting with this stuff.
Very much so. In fact, at Biopreparat, they were experimenting with putting the agents of warfare, the bioagents, into a nose cone and shooting it in a missile.
Mm-hmm.
Others were, can we spray it from a balloon as it floats over the country?
Mm.
Remember the Chinese balloon?
Right.
Yeah.
U.S. government did those experiments in St. Louis was one of the places they did that test. But they've also done it in New York Subway, New York City Subway.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And it's a very mild agent. Well, it's just enough that we can track so we know if someone ever does do this.
How it'll spread. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So there are things going on in the world that are suspect.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love for someone like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to be in charge of an agency that looks into this and many others.
Yeah. I think as Christians, we need to step back, though, and just to remember, as exciting as this is, especially if you're a baby boomer, which both of us are, I'm sort of at the tail
Kennedy?
end. Yeah, at seeing a Kennedy, especially one who breaks with the Democratic Party he's the first Kennedy ever to endorse a Republican candidate for president.
I know.
So that's a big deal. And you can see why the family wanting to stay connected to the levers of power and play ball with the deep state or disavowing what Kennedy's doing. But he seems to be a man of genuine principle. But even if Trump wins in November, and there's some early polling numbers that suggest that in swing states, Kennedy's decision is making a difference, I should say. He was polling 4 to 5% in some of these states. And if that 4 or 5%, even if most of it goes to Trump, that could make the difference in the election. But even if Trump wins and if he follows through and appoints Kennedy to a position where he has the power to investigate these things, that's not going to save us from the deep state or what's to come. Our salvation comes through one name alone, and that is Jesus Christ. And that is the thing we need to remember.
Amen to that. What I do think, and I pray that this is what's going on, my glasses are boinging, that the Lord may be giving us another grace period.
Right. Donald Trump, he's a flawed human, as are we all, but he did oversee an administration that was at least staying out of the way of churches and Christians and our ability to proclaim our faith in the public square. The other party seems to be moving towards a consensus that certain speech is hateful and hate speech is dangerous and thus must be controlled. And that's why they were openly trying to censor things in the name of public health emergencies during the pandemic, but that will rapidly expand, as government always does. The mission creeps, and they start saying, well, these religious beliefs, which encourage children to hate people who are different, that needs to be suppressed as well. So while a second Trump administration would give us a reprieve, let's just view it as that. We are not going to see or achieve salvation at the ballot box.
No, we will not.
Yeah.
Break.
Well, things to talk about in the second half. BRICS is attracting new members.
Yes, we need to talk about BRICS, and I've got something about a boar.
Oh.
I want to get boring.
Is it a Boer war?
Boer war,
Yeah.
possibly.
Also want to talk about the hundreds of thousands of missing children.
That's another
in the
thing.
United States.
And in fact, Trump mentioned it in his speech last night.
Good for him.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, this is a big, big deal, and this should be a national shame, should be a national priority. And we'll tell you what we're talking about when PID Radio continues. Archaeologists call it the world's oldest temple, Göbekli Tepe. But who were the guardians of Göbekli?
I love that title. In fact, it's the title of Dr. Aaron Judkin's book, and he gets into that information. He is one of the world experts on Göbekli Tepe. There aren't very many of them.
There aren't, and he's one of the few who will take a Christian look at Göbekli Tepe and try to analyze the spiritual forces behind this mysterious site. Why did our Stone Age ancestors spend so much time building this specifically for ritual purposes?
And then burying it.
It
is a message in stone, and I tell you what, hundreds of archaeologists and experts have been trying to decipher this for a long time. I think Aaron may be onto something.
Right. This is a 60-minute conversation that Aaron and I had about Göbekli Tepe. You can get it now at our special introductory price, 20% off. But this special offer is only available at our online store. What lies beneath? 20% off now at gilberthouse.org/store. Welcome back to PID Radio. I'm Derek Gilbert.
I'm Sharon Gilbert, and if you're wondering if we're going to Israel in November and next spring, yes, we are. We have not yet changed our minds on that.
No, we have not. November 6th through 13th, our Solidarity Mission. I'm seeing that there's a group from Canada now planning a Solidarity Mission, same name.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that.
Not with the Lipkins, as far as I know.
Well, they need
but
to
they're
go
using
regardless.
the same title,
yes,
right?
Yes, please do.
So they're also looking at November. But the point is this. We are not afraid. We're going to go and we're going to bear witness to what happened last October 7th and show you why Israel is doing what it's doing, and also show the people of Israel that there are those of us on this side of the planet who understand what's going on, understand that this is a supernatural war that is taking place for control of God's Mount of Assembly, Zion. We basically to show the love of Christ. We're not going to evangelize that. In the Jewish culture, that's kind of a sore spot. And so it's kind of frowned upon. But if we show, look, we're Christians, we love Israel, we love the people of Israel, it plants seeds to think, hey, they're not the way I was told that they are.
Right. Behold how they love one another and how they're loving on us.
Yes. In fact, when we went there in May, was it May or March? It was March. No, it was May. Boy.
I know, we've been there a number of times.
Anyway, went in May, and there were people who were literally, I think, surprised that we were there. Why are you here? And when they told them, there were some people actually began to cry. But here, can we take a picture? Can we take it? The people of Israel, I think, are in shock that the world has turned on them so quickly after what happened to them last October. Yeah. So you can join us. This will be a small group, maybe a dozen, which is great because we all get to know one another. We bond. It becomes a tight little family group. And we hope to see you there. November 6th through 13th, we'll go to the south, visit the site of the Nova Music Festival, the town of Sderot, possibly Ofakim once again.
That would be lovely.
But so you can see, look, here are the homes, the private homes where citizens dwell. This is not a military base. This is a private dwelling with bullet holes all up and down the walls.
We have also asked the Lipkins if we can go to Shiloh.
Yeah.
And they have said yes. We've gone there previously on our big tours, and we didn't know if it was one of those places that was considered off limits now. But it is not, so we get to go.
Mm-hmm. So you can find out more at our website, gilberthouse.org/travel. And of course, next spring, we're still looking forward to the Iron and Myth Tour, featuring two of the three guys that I have with me once a month on the Iron and Myth Roundtable. Doug Van Dorn, Dr. Judd Burton, and Timothy Alberino playing the role of Brian Godawa. Brian he's like us. He's kind of a homebody, doesn't like to travel much.
I know.
But,
if it weren't for this love of Israel, I'm such a homebody.
You and me both. So you can find out more about that tour. And that one, we pray, will be peaceful enough that we can visit all of the places we would normally see, including Gilgal Rephaim, the gates of hell, Caesarea Philippi, and much more. And all of that is at gilberthouse.org/travel.
It is indeed. And if you are wondering if we're still planning to go to Turkey afterwards next spring, probably not.
Yeah, that is probably off the table. We found that our original plan, because already being on that side of the ocean, flying from Tel Aviv to Ankara would
so
be
inexpensive.
Yeah, but they're saying flying to Turkey from Israel right now is not really. You can do it. You got to go through another spot first.
Yeah, fly to a different country first.
Yeah, fly to Rome and then go to Turkey or whatever. But probably off the table. We may do a separate tour of Turkey at some point in the future. We're going to see Doug Hershey in December at the Prophecy Watchers Conference that we'll tell you about at the end of the program. And maybe we can work something out with Doug, because it's his tour company that we were planning to use. Yes, Mrs. G?
Oh, thank you very much for calling on me, Mr. Gilbert. You're very cute. I was just thinking that since we're talking Turkey, I would like to bring up my boar conversation.
Okay, one final thing. If you want to, I almost forgot about this, but if you want to get an idea of what we will see on our Solidarity mission.
Oh, yes, please.
The presentation that I gave based on that, showing video and images from our tour in May,
wonderful,
is available at our streaming video site. So if you go to gilberthouse.org/video, you can see that presentation. It's free, and about a 1 hour presentation where I kind of walk you through what we saw last May, or this past May, and then that'll give you an idea of what we plan to do in November.
Yes,
okay,
indeed.
Now, boars.
Now, by the way, boars.
By the way.
Many of you know the reason what Derek and I really would like to go to Turkey, especially if we can go there with Judd Burton and perhaps even Aaron Judkins, because they are both studying Göbekli Tepe. So Derek and I would love to see Göbekli Tepe, Şanlıurfa, Karahan Tepe, and the many other tepes that are over there. It just means mountain or hill. A new story just came out about a brand new discovery at Göbekli Tepe.
Yeah.
And it is it's a statue. Whether or not it was original to the very first iteration of that temple, I think many of those buildings were actually temples. Don't know. But it's very interesting. It is a boar. It is life-size, and it was painted.
Yeah, I'm looking at the picture of it right now. That is really some amazing work.
Yes, there's still red ochre on it, and they could tell, the experts, that it was once painted red, white, and black.
The age of this thing, according to scholars, is probably about 9,000 BC. That's give or take some hundreds of years.
Right. So
Göbekli
maybe a little newer than Göbekli Tepe, assuming they're right about that age.
Right.
Because it's about 10,000
years old. Göbekli Tepe, they date between about 9,600 and 8,200 BC.
Oh, I thought it was 10,000 BC-ish. That's what I said when I said 10,000.
Yeah, ish. The wild boar statue, they date to about 9,000 BC, according to the article.
Yeah, so it's a little newer than what they think Göbekli Tepe is. But my point is, where they found it was on a bench that had decorations along it. Whether or not the bench was a reused item, it was sitting in front of a porthole. So what was the porthole for? Was this a doorway? Sitting in front of a porthole, and there was a cup mark on the bench. A big cup mark. And the boar statue is holding something in its front trotters. What it is, they don't know. It's as if he is accepting an offering.
That would make sense. Yeah, why that? I will say this. In researching the cult of the dead around ancient Israel, which predated the arrival of the Israelites in the land in 1400 BC. You find a lot of examples of the sacrifice of boars, of pigs. There are some scholars who believe that the only reason pigs were even raised in the ancient Near East, because it was a forbidden animal. It was unclean in other cultures besides the Israelite culture. Was to offer them as sacrifices to the dead.
Very likely. And in the same area, the archaeologists have discovered a boar's jawbone.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, at least one boar died there or was brought there after it died.
Yeah.
So it may have been a sacrificed animal. Also, if you look at the statue at Pozamoro, which is in Spain, you see that the entity to which these sacrifices are given is consuming them. There are several of these demonic entities, and they look very porcine, very pig-like.
Yeah, the big lower tusks and so on, yeah.
So did this represent a sacrifice, or did this represent a deity?
Good question.
Remember how many animals are carved into all of the T-shaped pillars? It's thought that they may represent astronomical points in time.
Yep.
That this is a building recounting history. And if so, the portholes are even more curious.
Yeah. What's on the other side of the hole?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Calling Judd Burton.
Yeah.
Calling Aaron Judkins.
And we should point out, by the way, we've got a DVD in our store, What Lies Beneath. We produced it for Skywatch TV, an interview with Aaron Judkins about Göbekli Tepe and the Watcher's influence on Göbekli Tepe. I just looked up Göbekli Tepe. The official estimate on the settlement from about 9,500 BC to about 8,000 BC, which corresponds to the time of what they call the pre-pottery Neolithic, meaning before they'd even invented ceramics, they were building these massive structures. They've only excavated a small percentage. Less than 10% of the site is
tiny. And recently they've discovered what appear to be dwellings. So it may have been a big, like cathedral sort of city,
right? Where
you've got big temples, and then the business of taking care of the temples and providing the sacrifices, so you'd have farms and things like that.
The original analysis of what had been discovered was that this was strictly a ceremonial site for religious purposes. But you're right; they've started uncovering dwelling places. So the conclusions that were being reached, or at least the hypotheses that were put out there rather than conclusions, were based on just a small sample. And as the dig expands, they're finding that, wait a minute, our initial analysis was not correct, because now we've got to account for the fact that there are houses here, in addition to the ceremonial, the temples. What is just amazing, though, is that the whole place was buried. As big as this place is, how much work did it take to move all that dirt?
Ritually buried, which is what you did when you were leaving a certain area, leaving your sacred site. You did not want your enemies to come in and what is the word I want?
Desecrate.
Desecrate it. Thank you.
And they've seen that at other places, like the houses on the back of the great the great serpent mound, the serpent mound of Bashan.
And Joshua's altar may have been ritually buried.
It was. So this would not be the first time that's been seen. It's been seen elsewhere in the ancient Near East.
Right. Well, another interesting thing about the bench that the boar was found on is that along the side that faces the observer, underneath, you see what appears to be, yes, I know, it's been described as waves. No, it's a serpent.
It's a serpent. Yeah, serpent, and I'm not sure what that shape is at the far left there. It almost looks like a femur or something, representation of a leg bone.
I don't know.
What's behind it is definitely a serpent. That is not waves. Interesting, because the serpentine motif is something that you also see consistently at Göbekli Tepe and the nearby site Karahan Tepe.
You know, how interesting that I was looking at that in the image. I watched a video about this last night, And I looked at that odd carving to the left, and it was described as a number of things. And whether or not it was original to the, to the time period, or someone else came along later on before it was ritually buried. Don't know, but yeah, I was with you. I couldn't quite figure out what it was. But if it is supposed to represent a bone of some kind, what do we see in Genesis? The serpent will bite the ankle. The heel.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. That is weird. You know what? Almost looks like a head coming out there. Was that supposed to be a turtle, maybe? I don't know.
Well, I've seen it. The guy who was narrating the video said he thought it was a turtle.
Okay.
Which I think is why he thought it was waves.
Yeah.
But no, it looks like serpent to me. And there are many other serpentine images and, imagery that is evocative. That's the word I wanted. Elsewhere in the tepes, the mini tepes.
Yeah.
The tepid tepes.
The Tas Teple.
Yeah.
The stone hills, what they called. So, yeah, fascinating. And again, that all of this was done before the invention of the wheel or pottery.
Exactly. And another thing that I noticed, and then we can go to something else in this video, was that there was a map that he showed of the various known tepes within this time period. And it almost looked like a constellation to me. Now, wouldn't that be interesting?
Yeah, that would be interesting. Need to take a look at that map and see if that can be matched up.
Yeah, I know. Doug Van Doren is really good at doing stuff like that. Doug! Call him Dr. Doug!
Oh, yes. Well, the missing children, we really need to get on that.
That is huge.
Because there's some political stuff, but we've already hammered political stuff in this program. The Department of Homeland Security, earlier this week, this would be Tuesday, announced, right? Wednesday.
Today is Saturday.
Yep. Backing up in my mind, 23rd, 2nd. No, this was Tuesday. I was right the first time. Tuesday afternoon, Department of Homeland Security's Office of the Inspector General. So this is like an internal watchdog on DHS. And remember that Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas was impeached by the House of Representatives. Senate didn't convict because they don't have the 60 votes. But he was impeached, first cabinet secretary since the Civil War to be impeached because of the estimated 11 million migrants who've crossed into the United States.
More than that.
Well, that's the ones we know about.
Yeah. It was 11 million when Obama was in office. Remember he was going to pardon 11 million people?
Yeah, but there's another 11 million that have crossed since Joe Biden took office.
Oh, no, I know where you're talking, but I think it's more than doubled.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, I was talking just since Biden took office. But yeah, the total number of migrants that have crossed into the country in the last 12 years.
Yeah, easily 25 million.
Easily. 16 years since Obama took office. Since 2019, according to the Inspector General at DHS, more than 300,000 unaccompanied minor children who came to the border without a parent or guardian, have been released into the United States and are now unaccounted for. 300,000 missing children.
Okay, my question. How do we know the number? When they came in, was a record started?
Yes, here's from the report. As of May 2024, ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, had not served an NTA, that's a notice to appear, or scheduled a court date for more than 291,000 unaccompanied children. So these were children that they knew had come into the country and were released to somebody, but were not given a notice to appear.
Into foster care?
Foster care, a guardian who claimed that they were responsible for them, MS-13, child traffickers. We don't know. ICE doesn't know. 291,000. In each ICE location, according to the Inspector General, I'm quoting now from the report, in each ICE location we visited, we could not, ERO, and I'm not sure what ERO stands for, I'd have to look up that acronym, could not serve NTAs on all unaccompanied children. At one location we visited, 34,823 of 41,638, that's 84%, of unaccompanied children in the local area had not been served NTAs to initiate immigration proceedings. They were just let go and not tracked. So they don't even know where they are to follow up with them and say, okay, are you going to officially become a citizen? We don't know where they are.
Oh my gosh.
Without an ability to monitor the location and status of unaccompanied children, ICE has no assurance unaccompanied children are safe from trafficking, exploitation, or forced labor.
Or even alive.
I followed up on this, read another story. This is from a press release issued by the Republican Party, which, of course, wants to make hay of this. But the bottom line is that ICE said that, let's see, let me bring it up here because I've got it.
Both sides should be all over this.
Well, yeah, because, again, this started in 2019. They're tracking this from 2019, which was when Trump was in office and his Department of Homeland Security secretary was in charge. According to... Okay, at Zero Hedge, which is one of the news sites, and this is from the original news sources, headlineusa.com. More than 32,000 unaccompanied minors fail to show up for their court dates, and ICE can't account for all of them either. So 291,000 not even given court dates. Others who were given court dates just didn't show up, which means you got over 320,000 who we just don't know about. Now, ICE has limited authority to track children and to do anything about it. According to the Inspector General, even if ICE, and I'm quoting now, even if ICE were to identify unaccompanied children in unsafe conditions, the agency has limited authority to respond. ICE personnel at 2 field offices affirmed this and explained they had identified unaccompanied children in unsafe conditions but were unable to intervene. One ICE officer expressed concern with not being able to take action in a case involving an unaccompanied child whose sponsor claimed the unaccompanied minor was in an inappropriate relationship with her husband.
What?
ICE does not have the legal authority to intervene and say, you're abusing this child, and so we're going to remove the child from your care. Who are these sponsors? We don't know.
And yet, social services could do that with
citizens.
A citizen family.
Yes.
Look, you and I, it is connected, believe me. You and I have 2 rescue dogs. I follow a number of pages on Facebook that look at dogs that are found, many of them puppies, and those puppies will either be cared for, taken into a system, fostered, find a home. Mm-hmm. They will be chipped so we know who they belong to. Both of our dogs are chipped. Mm-hmm. I don't personally want to be chipped, but I want to know if they get out,
right,
that they'll come home. Mm-hmm. What you're saying is that these human children mm-hmm. are being treated more casually than puppies.
Yep. Whistleblower inside HHS said that these failures are systemic from top to bottom, widespread breakdowns and failures within the administration. This is so egregious that it must be deliberate. In fact, one whistleblower is describing this in these terms: taxpayer-funded child slavery.
Yeah.
This goes back years. I remember during the Obama administration talking about a case where migrant children had been delivered to sponsors running an egg farm in Ohio and were working in essentially slave labor conditions. So this has been ongoing for years. It's not just the Biden administration. This goes back years. There are, in 2 cases here, the Inspector General found the children were delivered to homes sponsors who had ties to MS-13, the El Salvadoran gang. Exceptionally brutal.
And there are more brutal gangs that are in the U.S. now.
Yeah.
Venezuela.
Yep. So this should be a priority, and I'm very glad to hear, because I didn't watch Trump's speech last night. I was doing other stuff that needed doing. Mm-hmm. I'm glad to hear that he brought up this incident, because this is huge, and the President Trump, that is, should focus on this as a priority for his next administration. And I think if he hammers this, where are the missing children? Especially given that Kamala Harris was designated the border czar, as much as the corporate media is now trying to walk that back. oh, that never happened, even though they were the ones reported it at the time.
Yes.
She was put in charge of stopping this. Where are these children? Why has Homeland Security let these children go? The Inspector General said there need to be changes to give ICE the authority to intervene in these cases. Why are hundreds of thousands of unaccompanied children being released into the United States to sponsors who've not been vetted? It's because somebody's making money on this. This is one of the reasons.
Follow the money.
It is absolutely. This is one of the reasons that Whispering Ponies Ranch, that Joe Horn has taken this on as such a personal cause. There is a forthcoming docuseries from Defender Investigative Films called Rescue Us. Joe showed some clips from the series at his presentation in Ohio, and he begins to weep when he's talking about this.
As did we all.
Yes, yes. Joe is the father of, Joe and Catherine have 4 wonderful children. Brilliant, brilliant kids. We've watched them grow up before our eyes. It's like, you're talking now? Yeah.
How is that possible? You're still a baby, right?
Anyway, he takes this very personally. We've watched our daughter grow into a very successful, accomplished young woman.
Wonderful.
And funny, entertaining, one of my favorite people just to hang out with.
Mine too.
Yeah. So we can see what joy children bring. Yes, they can be infuriating at times. They will try to get away with things. They will tell you what you want to hear instead of what they actually did, that sort of thing, just as we do to the Lord. Just imagine, your frustration times 8 billion, and that's God.
Yeah.
But here we've got these precious children who are being released into the country. And this is why Robert F. Kennedy was beginning to weep during his speech yesterday, just talking about the food aspect. But add this to that we are facilitating, we, the American taxpayer, at the very least abetting, if not openly aiding this. Why was ICE directed by the Department of Homeland Security to weld open those security gates in Arizona, to keep the gates literally open for traffickers to cross the border? If they're not unaccompanied adults, men of military age, 300,000 plus children who've now disappeared into the interior of this country, we don't know. Child trafficking is a more profitable business for illicit crime rings than narcotics or prostitutions or pornography even. And these children are living lives that we would not wish on our worst enemies.
We've been talking about the border crisis for a long, long time. And it's another reason you need to download our app, because it's one of those things that could get us.
This is a topic that
off.
gets you canceled. Yeah.
But if you are on the app, you can search for, I don't know if you would put it under migration or what you might put for the tag for those old PID radios.
Can't really tag on the app. You can search by speaker and you can look for certain words, but we're not allowed to. Well, no, actually we can do it. I just have not done it because
that's okay. Old PID radios. So back in the day, we've talked about this a lot.
Yeah. I was talking about this during my daily talk show almost 20 years ago.
I know.
In Colombia. I interviewed retired Union chief for Border Patrol officers. And he was talking about this back in 2006. So, and during the George W. Bush administration. But when you look at the number of encounters at the border over the past 24 years, you see that it really spiked. As soon as Joe Biden took office, it was like the floodgates were open and the people in Central and South America knew it.
Yeah, but when you were talking about this and when we were talking about it during PID radio days, it was during the Bush administration and it was less believable to our audience.
Yeah.
Because we've got a Republican as a conservative in the White House.
Yep.
Well, it doesn't matter. Blue, red, they are the same party. They've unified long ago for ulterior motives that are not in our best interests.
Right.
Not in the best interests of our children. So the idea of watching Kennedy and Trump unify to protect our children, that makes me pretty happy.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know there's some are saying, oh, Kennedy's a liberal, he's a liberal. Hey, set that aside. If they're going to unify over the issue of protecting our children, protecting the next generations, we need more children in this country. We are not having enough children to even maintain our population, which may be one reason they're bringing people in, allowing people in, because you can't grow the economy if you've got a shrinking population.
And they're trying to boost the numbers in those blue areas so they have more voters.
More voters, but even if they don't vote, because I don't think they really care if they vote, but they're counted in the census.
Yes.
And so when you apportion representatives in the House of Representatives, if California has grown because you've allowed several million new arrivals in there, whether they're voting or not, California gets more representatives in Congress.
Yep.
It offsets the people who fled to states like Florida, Texas, and Missouri.
Well, I tell you, for now, in the House of Representatives, there are only 435 seats.
Right.
Seriously, there are only 435 seats. The only way that they could expand that and no longer just portion them out, if they wanted to expand the number of seats, they'd have to build a new House of Representatives chamber.
And
because it's only got 435 seats.
And change the Constitution.
Oh, well, yeah, but they've been doing that for years.
Well, just choosing not to enforce certain things.
As Al Gore says, well, it's a living document.
Yeah. So that is one of the things that we're keeping an eye on. This report by the Inspector General, again, considering that this is coming from the Biden-Harris Department of Homeland Security, that the IG there is openly saying, hey, we've got a serious problem here. These children are missing. That must really have galled the White House.
Oh, very
this
much
came
so.
out, especially the same week as the Democrat convention.
Before we go, and I think we're probably going to take a question from the app, I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
Biden is now a lame duck president. What do you think he will try to do, or someone will try to do through him? Because lame duck presidents can get away with a lot of stuff.
They can.
Signing lots and lots of memos and things like that.
Well, good question.
He'll pardon a bunch of people.
Biden,
maybe his son.
Could be. I mean, he won't have to worry about the political fallout. If he does it after the election, the political fallout would be minimal. Because people will be angry about it for a while, but by the time the next presidential election rolls around, we'll all have forgotten.
Just wait till December. That's usually when it's done, the last month.
We'll all have forgotten about it. So that's one thing. There is something that popped up, and thank you, Rover, at the app for putting this into our radar here.
Radar, Rover. I see what you did there.
There is a draft executive order that's been floated by Biden that would compel states to adopt digital driver's licenses.
Well, that's interesting.
Biden administration laying the groundwork for wider acceptance of digital identification like driver's licenses you can show on your smartphone instead of actually having to carry the little card with you.
There are, a handful of states that already do that with Apple Wallet.
Yeah, Apple Wallet and a couple of other apps out there. Missouri had its own app for it. Now, that app has been withdrawn for unspecified reasons. I was going to say,
Missouri is not on the list for Apple, so...
It's not for Apple Wallet, but Missouri does have a digital driver's license.
Yeah, that day is coming when it will all be on your smartphone, which means eventually it will all be on a chip.
Yep. 13 states out of the 50 already have some kind of mobile driver's license. I was surprised to find Missouri on that list because we tend to be fairly conservative here.
Yeah.
But I don't want my driver's license on my phone. If I lose my phone, I don't want somebody having access to it.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, there's too much information on there already.
Which is a good reason to have facial recognition to unlock your phone.
Yeah.
I know I've never done that on mine, but I keep thinking I really should because just having the 6-number PIN.
Yeah, especially if it's something easily guessed, which is usually what we do. We find something easy to remember, and hackers have figured out, okay, it's most likely some combination of these numbers. So, anyway, that is the draft order. It would it has not yet been officially published, so it's simply a draft. This was obtained by a couple of news organizations this past week, so that would be something. But again, moving us toward a more digital existence. They're working in that direction. Digital money, digital existence, digital everything. It would ostensibly address a growing problem. Government has lost billions of dollars in fraudulent claims to benefit programs using forged identification cards.
They spend billions and billions and billions on foreign wars.
Yep.
They spend billions and billions to take care of people who have chronic illnesses.
And billions to offer free services to people who are not in the country legally.
Yeah.
Which, this is the irony. We're spending more per year on, okay, here's WIC, here's, free food, here are free services, free healthcare. Way more than it would have cost to finish building that wall.
Now, I will say this, that there are some people in genuine situations that are not of their own making.
Oh, yeah. I don't have a problem with the programs themselves.
It's just let's not bring in millions of people to add to that role.
To that burden, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Especially when cost benefit analysis. Okay, it was $4 billion to finish the wall, or $100 billion a year to feed and clothe and house.
Yeah.
And
well, you know what? We are the OGs.
Yeah,
we're the old crabby geezers. Ribbit. Question from the app.
Yeah, there are probably other things that Biden will try to get through.
That was the question, wasn't it?
No, that was not the question.
Oh, sorry. It was an observation.
A question from DF. That was the initials given on the app. What was the reason that Jesus had to spend 3 days in the grave? Was it to mock something that happened with the fallen angels needed to be fulfilled to rip the veil? Oh. Can't remember the exact reason. Don't want to discuss this info to others without knowing exactly that.
No, I think it's because of the that whole L and the revivification ceremony.
I think there's a lot to that. We talk about the ding. It's Joe.
I knew it. He always how does he do that?
I don't know. Got my phone on Do Not Disturb.
Me too.
And yet Joe manages to get right through. It will, according to the ritual texts, the Rephaim texts from Ugarit, they are
were
summoned.
Only recently discovered in the last 40 years.
About 40 years, yeah. These texts summon the Rapayuma or Rephaim to the threshing floor of El, the tabernacle of El, which is the summit of Mount Hermon, and it takes them 3 days to arrive. Now, why that? Could be that this is something that is a very ancient belief. You go back to the Inanna's descent to the underworld, which is a Sumerian myth, where she goes
there 3 days.
Yeah, goes down to the netherworld to try to take control of the great below from her sister, the queen of the underworld, Ereshkigal, and Ereshkigal fixes her with the stare of death.
And hangs her on a hook.
Hangs her on a hook, but 3 days later, with some help, she gets out. But there are other references to 3 days. 3 days of pestilence, the sword of Yahweh, when David was being punished for the sin of a census. There's a reference, a prophecy in Hosea 6, verse 2. After 2 days he will revive us, and on the third day he will raise us up that we may live before him. But there were also prohibitions on eating sacrificial meat on the third day after it was sacrificed. It had to be burned. Anything eaten on the third day was considered a violation of the law.
There are some who, looking at the idea of the ages, the present age, when is the end of the age? That's what the disciples actually asked him. What are the signs of your coming and of the end of the age? They knew something. These are references, I believe, to the writings of the scenes there in the north, because they wrote about the various ages. And there are those who take the idea that a day is as 1,000 years and believe that we are past 2,000 years. So the third day is what we were presently in. If the Lord returns soon, it'll be sort of dawn of the third day.
Dawn of the third day. The verses I was looking for in Leviticus 7:18. If any of the flesh of the sacrifice of his peace offering is eaten on the third day, he who offers it shall not be accepted, neither shall it be credited to him. It is tainted, and he who eats of it shall bear his iniquity. And then Leviticus 19, verses 7 and 8. If it is eaten at all on the third day, it is tainted. It will not be accepted, and everyone who eats it shall bear his iniquity, because he has profaned what is holy to the Lord, and that person shall be cut off from his people.
One final thing with regard to the El ceremony. where he summons the Rephaim to his temple, to the threshing floor, which is a portal.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that they travel one night and one day and then another, in the dawn of the third day they arrive in their chariots, that the Lord himself showed he would arrive,
yes.
return at dawn of the third day. He didn't need anybody to call him.
True.
He came on his own.
Mm-hmm.
And that was after going down to the watchers and saying, remember how you wanted to talk to me about something? And I said, Enoch would just deliver my message to you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm here to tell you in person, you're still dead.
Yeah.
But I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm getting out of here.
That's right.
On my own.
1 Peter 3, beginning at verse 19.
Mm-hmm.
So summarizing, something to do with some ancient ritual. I mean, we know that in the classical era, Greeks and Romans would have a ritual meal on the third
Mm-hmm.
day after the death of somebody.
Mm-hmm.
It was believed that it was on that day that the spirit left the body, which is why Jesus waited 4 days to call Lazarus out of the tomb.
Yes.
So there was some belief there that Jesus made clear that he was well and truly dead before he returned. He did not revive in the tomb. Oh, the coolness of the tomb revived him. No. He was well and truly dead. But there was a very ancient pagan belief that there was something spiritual about that third day. And God, as far back as the time of Moses, said, we don't eat the sacrifice on the third day because that's what the pagans do.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
So,
good question.
Thank you, DF. That's a very good question. Well, a conference is coming up, going to be in North Dakota in just a couple of weeks now.
Ooh,
yeah,
Pitchfork and Hoe.
Pitchfork and Hoe gathering, and we'll be there Saturday and Sunday, September 7th and 8th. The event begins on Friday the 6th. It's really a gathering of small farmers and homesteaders.
You don't need to bring a pitchfork or a hoe
Nope.
with you. If you want to, you could probably get one there.
Some wonderful organic food. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Some of the pastries that really.
Yeah, you brought back some of those homemade jellies.
Homemade
and jams,
jellies, yeah. I had not seen choke cherry since my grandmother, who was.
I hadn't seen it since England.
Yep. My mother is from North Dakota, and they grow and make choke cherry jelly. Choke cherry.
So good.
Yeah, very, very good. So this is at the Eagles Club in Valley City, North Dakota. It is going to be a busy weekend in that town. They've got a memorial. I don't want to laugh because I don't know the fellow who's being memorialized, but it's a memorial demolition derby.
Well, if that's what he asked for, well, then why not?
Yeah. So a lot of people are in town. Most of the hotel rooms in that town are already taken up for the weekend.
Yep. There are some B&Bs, but if you want to go and you don't live in the area, then really you need to sign up now.
Yeah.
Get your hotel.
You can find a link to the Pitchfork and Hoe Gathering Facebook page, which is where they've got the latest information. There's
Doug
a link
Hamp
to
will
it.
be there.
Yeah, Doug Hamp. Yes, almost forgot. Doug Hamp will be speaking there as well. So join us on Saturday. I'll be talking about our forthcoming book, The Gates of Hell.
Mm-hmm.
And on Sunday, I'll be talking about our trip to Israel, the secret history of Israel, how the modern state of Israel came to be. Spoiler, it wasn't the Rothschilds.
No. You've been taught to believe that, but that's not
that
it.
is just not the truth. Sorry, Candace Owens. That's not.
Who's whispering in her ear?
I don't know. She's really gone off the deep end. I mean, she's gone
her.
way beyond the Rothschilds.
Seriously.
She's really into some really dark
She's in the
blood
weeds.
libel
Pray
stuff.
for her.
The Christmas in Branson almost forgot the conference. I need to put this on the schedule. October.
The
Inspiring Women virtual webinar.
Yeah, I know. I'm looking so forward to that. It's really taking a look at overcoming adversity. You've had some we're all challenged in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Each one is met with a challenge that the Lord brings into your life or uses in your life to give you some muscle, give you some spiritual muscle. And some people, they drown in it. They just can't take it. And then others take that adversity and they get that spiritual muscle. So this is a whole bunch of ladies talking about how they have overcome.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the Lord. He gives us the power, the strength to overcome.
Vicki Joy Anderson, Heidi Begley, Tracy Tennant, and many others.
Oh, it's going to be so good. So virtual only. You can sign up at hearthewatchman.com, hearthewatchmen.com. I think it's so ironic. It's all women. It's hearthewatchmen.com.
But there will be a live event on that Sunday. Again, a virtual event where you can ask questions of the women involved. So do take advantage of that. That'll be coming up the first weekend in October.
Yeah, maybe by then I can put eye makeup on. My eyes, by the way, are better. They are better. In fact, I'm sitting here in the barn, and the overhead lights are not driving me crazy. You know how it was last Saturday?
Yes, wearing
I
a
had
cap.
to have a hat on
to shield your eyes.
And I was kind of wishing I had sunglasses on because it was just so painful. I actually walked outside this morning, and it's sunny. I didn't wish I'd had a cap on. I just put my hand over my eyes.
Yeah.
But it's getting better, and you guys are praying for me, so thank you, thank you, thank you.
Amen. And then the Christmas in Branson Prophecy Conference from Prophecy Watchers, December 5th through the 8th. That's Thursday through Sunday. 24 speakers, and I will be among them. But others include L.A. Marzulli, Bill Salas, Billy Crone, Ken Johnson, Patrick M. Wood, Doug Hershey, Josh Peck, Mondo Gonzalez, Brandon Holthouse, Lieutenant Colonel Robert McGinnis, Terry James, Olivier Melnick. This is really a wonderful, wonderful gathering. Larry Ollison, who's just up the road here. He's up Lake of the Ozarks.
I know. Yeah. He's a neighbor.
So quite a gathering, typical for a Prophecy Watchers conference. Bob Ulrich really knows how to pull these together, and honored to be a part of it. And this will be at a wonderful location, too, the
Chateau
on the Lake. Thank you. Overlooking Table Rock Lake. Beautiful hotel. Absolutely gorgeous. So please join us. We've got some friends who've already signed up, and hope we see you there as well, December 5th through 8th. And information, registration at BransonChristmasProphecyConference.com.
Woo.
Or just follow the link from our app. That's the easiest way.
That's the easiest one.
Well, tomorrow morning, Gilbert House Fellowship, we are beginning our study on the book of 1st Enoch.
Yeah.
Enoch, I keep getting complaints. Why do you say Enoch? Well, I'm from Chicago.
Yeah, but we're going to be trying that the fourth Sunday, or the last Sunday, I should say, of every month. Sometimes it won't be the fourth. But the last Sunday of every month, we're going to put the Bible study aside, and we're going to start reading in Enoch, because there is stuff in there that is referenced in the Bible, and sometimes downright quoted in the Bible.
And we'll say up front that we are not arguing that First Enoch should be in the Bible.
No, it is in some Bibles, but we're not saying it should be.
No, the early church resolved this under the guidance of the Holy Spirit, and it is not in the Bible. There are reasons for it to not be in the Bible. Having said that, there are doctrines that don't appear in any Jewish writing prior to the book of First Enoch, and it would be helpful for us to understand why.
Right. And I think it gives us some cultural context.
Yeah, I agree. Cultural, also geographic context, where it was written.
Oh, yeah. We'll be dealing with that tomorrow morning, so don't miss that.
Yeah, and then tomorrow night, Ali Siadatan returns to A View from the Bunker. We talk about Ezekiel 38 and 39, the war of Gog and Magog.
Boy, we didn't even talk about Iran today. There's so much going on with that, especially the U.S. assets that we're essentially surrounding the Middle East with our Navy. Yeah.
So pray for peace in the Middle East. Iran has not yet responded. Israelis are starting to breathe a little easier. I'm not sure that the danger has passed.
No, U.S. sources are saying, look, we've scared Iran away.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I pray that that's true, but I just don't think so. So anyway, Ali has got some really, really insightful observations about where we are and how this relates to where we are right now.
Yeah.
So until next time, I'm Derek Gilbert.
I'm Sharon Gilbert, and for Grace and Glory Gilbert. Bye-bye, everybody.
PID Radio is produced by Gilbert House and released under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 International License. Follow us online, Twitter @PID Radio, or the PID Radio page at Facebook. Join us each week for our online Bible study, the Gilbert House Fellowship, online at gilberthouse.org.